So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll give a couple of minutes for people to hop on. People from all over the world. It's lovely to see you all here. So Small World have invited me to talk about Feng Shui for your living space this evening. Maybe some of you joined for the Chinese horoscopes I did a couple of months ago. Feng Shui is the spatial aspect of this beautiful Chinese wisdom. And the two subjects do cross over, but primarily we'll be talking about the Feng Shui this evening. And the way it's going to go is we're going to have about 45 minutes of content. I have made it interactive, so please feel free to put some answers in the chat box, or put some answers to some of my questions in the Q&A, or if you've got questions, put them in the Q&A as well. And I'll do my best at the end to answer the questions. But I've tried to make it as interactive as possible for you guys. So a little bit about me while we have people logging on. So I've trained in Feng Shui for over 20 years, and I've also trained in environmental psychology. And my Feng Shui training is primarily classical, but also intuitive and somewhat shamanic as well. I am also a wellness designer. So I incorporate wellness aspects into the architecture of properties when there's an opportunity to do so. And I've spoken and taught all over the world. I've been very fortunate like that. I've been to Moscow and Tokyo and various other places to teach and to lecture. And then I've consulted in, I think it's 5 continents now. So, and some some clients have included people like Red Bull, Bartercard, Alibaba, the University of Oxford. I've also helped the Prince's Foundation for Building Community with their London Chinatown project, which was really interesting. I've lectured at the Reba Wellbeing event and the American Institute of Architects. I was part of a round table over in Jackson Hole, where the perspective of Feng Shui was required. And to get back to what is essential really is why I do the work that I do. It's the transformations that I can provide for people by using this beautiful knowledge. Feng Shui babies, I've got a few beautiful photos of very darling little babies that have been born as a result of changes in the parents' Feng Shui, and also timing with the Chinese calendar and the mother's Chinese horoscope. So, and also one little boy who was, he was the third in after 2 girls, and the father was desperate to have a boy, and we selected a property which would support specifically the birth of a son. And along he came in the year that I said it would be best for them to try. They fell pregnant, and we've had other success stories as well with people who have been told by Harley Street specialists that they can't have a child. It's not 100%, but it's definitely something worth looking at. Children sleeping better is something that I experience a lot. Again, it's simple changes to their room based on quite quite involved techniques behind the simple changes. So it could be the child's qua, as we call it, and the position of the room and the bed according to the active and the quiet energy and stuff like that. And then, of course, the adults sleep better because the children are sleeping better. And then businesses have come to me and, you know, explained that it's very quiet and we've made changes and their sales have increased. I've had couples talk about arguments in specific areas of the house, and we've made changes and peace has reigned supreme. So that's just a handful of the sort of testimonials, if you like, and examples of the transformations that applying this knowledge can provide. And it brings me a lot of joy. So what is Feng Shui exactly? So really, Feng Shui is about harnessing your environment and aligning to your environment as well. So in the Chinese, ancient Chinese systems of wisdom, you have heaven, human, and earth, and they're considered to be three treasures. And it kind of makes sense, really, because we all know, we look up at the sky and the stars at night, and there's this immense sort of heaven. And then there's the earth that we all inhabit. And then there's the human realm, which is like your education, your social groups, your upbringing, and what you bring to the world, what you do with your time each day, etc., etc. And the whole point of Feng Shui is to harmonize the human being with the earth and with the heaven. So if you're supported by the earth and you're aligned to the heaven, then your life should be pretty smooth. That doesn't mean to say completely uneventful, because a completely uneventful life is not considered lucky, because you never have a chance to develop yourself or, you know, develop resilience or anything like that. But those are the broad philosophical kind of considerations behind Feng Shui. And the Feng Shui talks about the energy of the space. And I'm sure many, many of you who are attending this call have some sort of experience of either acupuncture, or maybe you've had an aura reading, or you practice Tai Chi or Qigong or something like that, or yoga, and you're open to the idea that the body is like an electromagnetic body, but also a chi matrix in a way. And what's interesting is these meridians were discovered thousands of years ago, and yet today they're being scientifically proven to exist. So there's work being done by a university in Korea about the existence of the meridians. The electromagnetic fields are measured by NASA, for example. In the West, we know it as the aura, although it's slightly a different term, in fact. But we're becoming much more energetically aware of ourselves and also our environment. And so what Feng Shui does, Feng Shui, Feng means wind and Shui means water. And that's a metaphor for the dynamics of energy, really. So you can have active energy and you can have still energy, you can have all sorts of combinations. You can have the yin and the yang, the 5 elements, etc., which I'll get into. But before we talk about some of the simple things that you can apply at home, because everybody wants to know, what can I do at home? It's important to understand a little bit about the theory behind it, because that gives what you do another layer of understanding, and that makes it a bit more powerful. So to keep it simple, we have although we have like 64 directions plus in the Feng Shui compass, we also can break them down into the standard cardinal and subcardinal directions. And these are linked to trigrams, these little 3-lined icons here. And they all relate to a different part of the body. Okay, so when we talk about wellness architecture and sort of trendy terms like that, um, in my opinion, it's not complete without a discussion about Feng Shui, because the correlations between wellness and the body and the meridians and the psyche and the environment and the directions and the natural energy flows of each direction is really critical. So if somebody has like a heart problem, you would look at the south of the property inside, and you'd see, oh, is it like only half present, for example, if there's a piece out of the floor plan, for example, or is it perhaps full of clutter? Is it a garage that's never used, for example? And if there is stagnation in the energy in that direction, excuse me, then there will be a slight problem potentially with the heart. There's more to it than that. So based on your year of birth, you may or may not be present in that direction, but it's a consideration, for example. And to use another example here, if you've got problems with your ears and kidneys, then the Feng Shui consultant should come and look in the north of your property inside and see if there's anything that can be improved there. Because the Feng Shui is part of the 8 branches of Chinese medicine. And what used to happen was the traditional Chinese doctor would see somebody, and if the herbs weren't working, or if the acupuncture wasn't working, or if the breathing exercises, the qigong exercises that they were given weren't working, they'd say, okay, so it must be something environmental. And so they would advise to have a chat with the local Feng Shui master. So simplified, this is a bagua that many people will probably be familiar with. And it is one of the most sort of commonly seen tools of the Feng Shui world. And it's deceptively applied in a way because it makes it all look incredibly simple. There are so many different aspects to this work, but primarily, basically you could say that each direction is linked to a certain life area as well. So a lot of people want to know about the wealth corner and things like that. And then other people want to know about the relationships corner. Other people are fixated on their career and what they can do to help their career. But let's just go through them all. So if you start up in the career in the north, this is really your journey in life as well. And if you are experiencing blockages in your career, then you could look in the north, and it has to be the magnetic north, the actual north, not just based on a door or something like that. You need to take a compass reading. We'll get onto that in a little while. And so the northeast is to do with knowledge, and it is right opposite the relationships corner. And knowledge and inner knowledge is really important. So you need to know yourself and love yourself in order to be in a relationship, right? So if you look at the career again, if you're on a journey or a career that you're enjoying, then you're going to be sort of lit up about it, literally. And the south, opposite the north, is the fame area. So it's quite difficult to become famous with something that you don't enjoy, because your energy is a little bit about it all. So if you find something you enjoy, there's a chance that you might become renowned for it. In the East, we have the family and the ancestors, and making peace with the past helps you to move into the future, which is the West, which is creativity. And the creativity also applies to children. The Southeast is the wealth, and ideally, ideally you would be appreciative of so the Northwest in this is labeled travel here, but it's also helpful people. And the wealth that you have could have been provided to you by people who are helpful. Nobody's an island. So, you know, you need people to help you. And then perhaps if you're in a position of wealth, then you can potentially help others. So the concept of philanthropy and the practice of it. So you can see this is a very generalized view of the bagua. Let's look and see how it would apply to a real life situation. So in this floor plan, you would need to have taken a compass reading. So try not to rely on the north indicator on an estate agent plan, because they're quite often not that accurate. They're okay, but they're a little bit off most of the time. And so what you need to do is just find out where, basically, to keep things really simple, try and find your center, which is usually literally the center. So divide your floor plan into 9 sections and then see where the center is, the Tai Chi, stand in the center and take a reading. If you've got magnetic interruption or interference, what you need to do probably is step outside and find some greenery, some lawn or some earth to stand on, and then take your reading. And then once don't worry about the back and the front at this point, because that's a whole different thing. Just find out what the directions are. Don't use an iPhone because those aren't that accurate either. So once you know what your directions are, you can look at the bagua that we mentioned earlier with much more clarity. And some of these slides are going to be in there's a little download that I'm inviting you to get at the end of this presentation. So once you know where your directions are, then the next thing you need to look at is where your form is. And just checking the time here. So the form is really important in Feng Shui. What do I mean by that? So for all the sort of energetics of Feng Shui, it's also very practical because we spend our lives in, what appear to be physical realms. We have the chair behind us, the walls here. We have to take consideration of what's called form, so physical form. And to look at this, I'll give you the principles of the 5 celestial animals. We won't dwell too much on it, but we will go into some detail. The black tortoise is like the protective back of a house. So sometimes there's houses that have the back on the slope down of a mountain, and so they feel quite insecure. And then they come out in the mornings and they have to go up steps, and it feels like there's literally no support at your back, and you feel like life's an uphill battle. So these metaphors sound very simplistic, but they're very, very powerful. Because really what you want is you want to have that strong sense of the tortoise behind you, with the phoenix in front of you, so an open future. You don't want hills and tall trees in front of you. And then in terms of male-female dynamics, I mean, we all have, I've got my inner feminine, my inner masculine, whatever, male-female dynamics. Kind of, it makes the world go round in a way, and the male side of a property is considered the left side if you are looking out at the property, out from the front door. It's your left side. The tiger side is the feminine, and they should be the dragon should be slightly higher than the tiger. Because the feminine energy is actually considered more powerful, so the male has to be up for the task. Basically, if the tiger is higher and the male side is lower, then you'll find that it's the woman who is always, you know, out in the world and just probably very vocal in the relationship, and instead of much more of a harmony, you know, sort of give and take, two-way street, it can be a little bit imbalanced. And of course the other way is true. The guy can be a little bit controlling of the woman if it's all out of balance. And it's not just the physical aspects of the feng shui, but then you see repeating patterns of these particular dynamics. And it's so interesting. I've been doing this for years. I can look at a property and think, oh yeah, I bet she's a bit controlling, or he, or whatever. And there is a feng shui for same-sex couples, actually. That's really fascinating as well. So it's not all just about the male and female couples. So to give you an example of the feng shui form on a wider scale, you've got Hong Kong as a really classic example, where they have the Victoria Peak behind, the central business district, and then the water in the front. And the water again is locked in by different islands. And so this is a classic of the mountain support. I mean, I know around the other side there's Repulse Bay and Causeway Bay and this, that, and the other. But primarily speaking, this central business district is a really good example of the mountain and the water. So if you then so feng shui applies to cities, and you know, you can build an entire city around the principles of feng shui. You can then also narrow it down into a sort of more micro level, which would be your house or your apartment. And the same principles apply. Behind the house is the mountain, the dragon side is to the left, the tiger side's to the right, the front of the house is the phoenix and needs to be nice and clear. So however many of you have joined the call, you're going to all have completely different classical form in your property. So if we then again see, we've gone from the city to the house. Let's look at a bedroom. Here we have a really nice example of the mountain behind the bed. So if you notice, some houses in, particularly in America, I've noticed there's a trend where people put they put the bed against a window. It drives me insane. It just feels really unstable. It's beautiful to have the light if that's what you're into, but energetically it's really off. It's much better to have your bed head against a solid wall, and then to have a nice, fairly, you know, balance is fine, or they can be slightly higher on the dragon, a little lower on the tiger. But the point is, there is this support each side. It doesn't just drop away to the carpet. So if you've moved into a beautiful flat and you've not even got your headboard on your bed, which I see time and time again, get a headboard. It's much better to have a headboard. You'll find you'll sleep much better. So I can't see the chat box and share my screen at the same time, but where would be the dragon in this bedroom? It would be there. And the phoenix is in front. So again, you don't want your bed to face something really oppressive like a wardrobe. You need a little bit of space before the wardrobe. You know, if it's all too congested, especially for children, it can give children nightmares to have really tall pieces of furniture. So in front of your bed, ideally you would have a really tranquil painting. You wouldn't have any mirrors in the bedroom if you can avoid it, or if you had them, you'd close them away. In the wardrobes, certainly don't have those giant mirrored wardrobe doors. because mirrors are just too activating for a bedroom. It's fine if they're on the ceiling and you're in Las Vegas for a fun weekend, right? But not for for when you want to stay at home and be calm. Here's the tiger side in that setup. So that's just giving you some examples. So this doesn't necessarily mean that the woman would be on this side, but probably is in this room because the main door is over here. So you want the woman away from the door because her energy is just a little bit more receptive. The man's energy tends to be a little bit more sort of outgoing, so he can handle being closer to the source of chi that comes into the room. So here's another example. Slightly higher on the dragon side. Whoops. But obviously this is a kind of beginner's seminar. I just want to impress upon you how detailed the feng shui can become, and how, you know, it's fine to play around with some of these principles, but if you are serious about real change, positive change, you'd need to do something a little bit more advanced, because there's just so much magic available, basically. So many techniques that I've learned that I could then apply to help you. You have your personal auspicious directions based on your date of birth. That can either be the year or it can also be the Chinese horoscope as well. So back to the sort of simple things for you to apply. Lots of people also want to know about feng shui for romance. And so rose quartz is a really beautiful crystal to use. And it resonates with the heart chakra. And to be in a receptive state for romance, it probably applies for women a little bit more, but it can work for men as well, is to have some rose quartz either side of your bed, because it can really ground you into that energy of love. But the other thing you want to do is look at the northwest and the southwest of your house and see if you have any clutter there, or any missing spaces. A lot of single women in London, for example, will live in these Victorian beautiful townhouses, or Georgian townhouses, and they're L-shaped and the southwest is missing, and they struggle to find somebody. So it's really important to have the southwest and the northwest present if that's a focus for you at that point in your life. And of course, you can change properties as well, depending on the focus that you have at that particular time. But if you want to sort of move on and find new love, you need to burn your old Valentine's cards, right? And burn those letters, particularly if they were from somebody who sort of broke your heart a bit. It's fine to, you know, if there's been a tragedy, like you've been widowed or something like that, then it's fine to have a memento of people, you know. I'm not saying get rid of all photos, because that's also a bit soulless, but maybe just keep a selection of the best. And then, you know, let go, and, you know, definitely don't hold on to what doesn't work. And then what you need to do is envision what you want, and avoid photos and artwork of single icons. The amount of homes I've gone to over the years where the woman wants to attract a guy and all she's got is like the Klimt goddesses and you know, all sorts of other solo figures of the feminine. Now, it's great to know yourself and, you know, develop your own independence, but if you are surrounded by single women everywhere, it's just a metaphor that just keeps repeating subconsciously. So again, this is quite, you know, basic feng shui, but it's more sort of image psychology or whatever. The timing is also really important. So you've got the Chinese horoscope at the time in your life that is more conducive to a relationship than other times. That can be really powerful for people, because some career women think, oh God, I'm never going to find anybody or whatever. And they spend that time sort of half living, when in fact, when they have the reading and they see that it's not a good time for relationships and it's just a really good time for career, then they can sort of commit to that path much more. Then they feel much better about themselves. And even that little sort of energy shift can open the door to something happening, whether the timing is there or not, because, it's both timing, but it's also in your individual energy that you're emanating. So there's so many different aspects, and energy works in very fascinating ways. So the Feng Shui for the relationships is very important, but also the timing and the colors for dating. We all have our best colors, and they're based on the Chinese horoscope. So it's not just about the year that you're born or the month that you're born. It's the day and the hour. So it's not enough to say, okay, I'm born in the water monkey, therefore this is how my life's going to be. It's much, much more complex than that. You'll have a day master, or a self element, as it's also called. And that element, so in this case, water, will influence how you relate to other aspects. So the other aspects will represent things like career, husband, money, power and influence, health, etc., etc. And out of that, you'll discover what your best colors are. So are you best in the water colors, which are blue and black, or are you best in the fire colors, reds and pinks and purples? It's all relevant. So back to the home. These days, of course, people are very keen on Zoom rooms and things like that. So this is a home office that I did for a chap in Islington a while back. The angle of the desk was actually based on his particular qua, but we kept the basics of the feng shui for him. And you'll notice there's a very slight slope, but it's not too oppressive. If it was a lot lower, then I definitely wouldn't have placed him there, but it's a very gentle slope and it's still quite a high ceiling. So it was better to pick up the good direction that he was facing and to maintain some very good form. And he had a nice chaise longue there for him to sit back and ponder. So a lot of you will have had to either create turn a spare room into a office, or maybe even use the kitchen table. Maybe you don't have a spare room. But the principles apply. Wherever you are, try to have a wall behind you. Now, this plant is a little bit spiky, because the reason I use stock photos sometimes, not always, but sometimes, is because some clients are quite private and they don't want people, they don't want their photos used for educational purposes, for example. So this plant is a little bit too spiky for my liking, but in the grand scheme of things, this is okay. How about this? What do we think about this? Is this a good layout based on what I said, to have the door behind you? No, it's not. So this chap shouldn't be looking so happy. He's got bad feng shui. How about this one? Is that good, to have your back exposed to the center of the room and to be facing a wall, which is what a lot of people do because of space considerations? Nope. Be much better to turn yourself around, or even if you can't turn yourself completely around because there's not enough space, the least you can probably do is turn yourself so the desk is side on, okay? Because regardless of your personal astrology, if you've got bad form, then it's not good. You need to correct the form first. So here's a direct extract from a report I did for somebody. This shows the layout. This was a husband who was turning a spare room into an office, and this is what we call the power position, because it is directly opposite the main door into the room. And so here he sat with a solid wall behind him. Remember that nice mountain support, or armchair support, as it's also known as. And he's looking in front of him. He's got a nice little water feature. He's got a view of the garden outside. Whoopsie daisy, I've done it again. He's got a view of the garden outside. He's also got a view of the room. So subconsciously he can relax. He can just switch off. He knows he can see any threat. Now, you know, we live in a civilized society mostly, thankfully. We don't have to sort of be on guard and super alert like the days of the caveman or whatever. But there's still a part of the brain that does respond a little bit like that. So you want to make sure that you just feel protected at the back. The other really nice thing to have in your home office is an aquarium. Especially if you live on your own, the energy can get a bit yin, and having an aquarium can help to sort of boost the chi and create a little bit of yang energy, as can having pets running about the house. But the Feng Shui aquariums are really good for sort of giving a boost in career and finances. There are specific directions that you need to place them in. They're best in the east and the southeast. I'm not going to dwell too long on this because we've got a few more slides to go through. But the Feng Shui is primarily about the elements in the Chinese medicine, and metal, water, wood, fire, and earth has its own design shape as well. So it's not just colors, there's also a design shape. So you can create really bespoke designs with this. This is obviously another urban scene. But the colors for your bedroom, for example, would need to be what we call yin. They don't need that. You don't want them too yang. Yang is more active. The colors like red that jump out at you. Yin colors are much more feminine. They're much more sort of restful. They tend to be the paler colors, the pastels. In this room, a lovely sort of mauve color. This is actually a gentleman's room, believe it or not. But he wanted to make it more appealing to a woman, because a lot of bachelors will have, and I'm sure some of you listening in are guilty of this, they'll have a sort of completely beige or completely white apartment, and everything kind of metal, stainless steel, or what you know, and very kind of minimalist, and it's not conducive to attracting the feminine energy. So we jazzed it up a bit for him. The 5 elements can also be expressed in patterns. So this is a fiery pattern, for example. These are wood shaped and wood colors. They come across a little bit yellow there, but they're actually green. Won't go into this again. We mentioned it earlier about the Chinese astrology and how you can use it to track the elements throughout your life. You can use it to fine-tune the Feng Shui advice. because these little characters all have a sort of representative area in the, the space. So here are a few before after sort of transformations from my practice. It just looks like a completely different neighborhood, really, doesn't it? It's all a little bit depressing, uncared for. You've got ivy leeching away all the energy there. It's very yin. Try not to have too much ivy in your home unless it's massive grounds, for example. But if it's an urban environment, too much ivy can leach your energy. So we put in this beautiful garden design, and then the Buddha was placed in a very specific position. This is the same home, believe it or not. The kitchen was all sort of, it was just a very strange design. It wasn't very useful, and we completely transformed it, and had this aquarium made to auspicious dimensions, and this living room again, you know, that because some of these long houses, it's quite difficult to make the spaces flow. We used color and lighting to make the spaces kind of connect to one another, and we also chose even the imagery here, the Taj Mahal. We needed a dome shape. We needed the Mokuk energy. So the colors, the arches, the circles, everything is specifically selected. And another interesting property that I've worked on, and we had the rug designed to reflect. There was a big canal, and so I designed this rug to reflect the kind of ripples in the canal. This place was really quite depressing. The woman didn't feel too good in it, and she loved the sort of new space that we'd created for her. And the client was a little bit nervous about using so much gold, but it actually worked really, really, really well, and looked absolutely stunning. So a few more principles for you to take with you. Don't have plants that are spiky. You need to have, even though these have like pointed leaves, they're quite soft points. They're not like really harsh. So all these are really, really nice plants to have around you. These are an absolute nightmare. If you look away from them, if you just look away and then you see them out of your peripheral vision, they look like somebody's taken a biro and just scribbled everywhere. And the points are really quite harsh, and if you catch yourself on one of them, it's really not very nice. So they just create a crappy sort of energy, really, and also an energy of conflict, which you really just don't want when you're trying to sort of like live in a harmonious household or whatever. The money plant, everybody always asks about the money plant. It's, you know, although I have had some amazing kind of experiences with clients with these, you know, you have to be mindful that these things are one of many different things that you can do, and if you do them all at the same time, it's much more powerful. So just putting a money plant alone in your house isn't going to, you know, necessarily boost your luck. But again, we can put them in certain positions where the energy is being drained, or where the energy needs a boost, because if the energy is being drained, then the succulent nature of the money plant holds on to water, and water is considered wealth in the Feng Shui tradition. Moth orchids are good for attracting a love of a refined and spiritual nature, especially the white moth orchids. So for 2021, there's a suggestion to put salt cures and coins in the north and the southeast, because there are sickness stars in the property for this year. And the little gift I have for you will give you more information on that. They don't have to be visible. You can sort of tuck them away, but sometimes they can look really rather beautiful because they create these sort of salt crystals that bloom. And the salt is very cleansing. Decluttering, I don't really need to mention it, do I? Everybody prefers, well, most people prefer a clutter-free space. Some more artistic, creative types have a certain amount of clutter for a certain amount of time. I do that myself sometimes. If I'm doing, 2 or 3 projects at the same time, I might have a little bit of a creative mess, if you like, that I don't want to organize because I'm still in the flow of it all. But then after a couple of days, when the work's finished, I'll clear away and get it all zen again. So it doesn't have to be meticulous all the time, but you certainly don't want chronic clutter. Again, there's more information on these in the little gift that I have for you. But the grounding mats, especially if you're in a high rise or there's not much greenery around and there's a lot of electromagnetic stress, you can buy these really useful little grounding mats, which can help you to just ground your energy. And then the sleep systems are really fabulous. There's loads of top athletes use these for better recovery times. They help your circulation, and wellness is a real topic at the moment. And Nikken are trailblazers in this. They've been around for, I don't know, 40, 50 years or something like that. And the sleep systems are absolutely amazing. So the way that I can help you, before we get into the questions, I am doing on-site Feng Shui readings, which incorporate a little bit of the wellness as well, where it's possible to do so. Sometimes I'm doing remote floor plan analysis. My preference is to do on-site. But it's a strange climate at the moment around that. There's also remote new build design that you can do from scratch. If you have a big project overseas, I used to fly a lot more than I am now. But sometimes, because of the way the planning situations are in some sites, there's a limited amount that you can do, so you can actually do it remotely. And there's videos and all sorts of things that we can use, Google Earth, and then sometimes there's people on site who can take the compass reading. And with larger projects, sometimes you don't need the most exact reading. So sometimes you can get away with a more basic reading. And then, of course, there's the Chinese horoscopes that I do for people, and the horoscope coaching, which can all be supplied remotely. So thank you for listening until the end. My contact details have been on each slide, but if you'd like to have a complimentary download to a little ebook about Feng Shui and Chinese astrology, then click on that link. I think Ellen's going to put it in the chat or the Q&A or whatnot. And I'm also going to offer a complimentary 20-minute discovery call for the first 10 people who are listening to this and drop me a message. So you can use the contact form on my website. I hope this has been interesting for you. And let's go back to I'll stop screen sharing and see if we've got any questions. Okay, so hi, Irisha. Thank you. Celestial animals, a snake entitled in the center. Oops. Oh, I see. That's a really good question. The yellow, yeah, the I think it's the yellow snake, isn't it? Not necessarily. It's yeah, not necessarily. The snake is just the way, it's a power center. The snake is a powerful creature. If anything, you want to keep it a little bit more clear. So for you, the snake could be the south. I mean, the southeast is the position of the snake, but for you, there could be other animals in your chart which make it maybe not the best place for you. There may be other positions where you would do better. So Aline, can you help on interior design for new building construction? I certainly can. That is one of my favorite things to do, Aline. It's one of my specialisms. My book is coming out in October about new builds, about Feng Shui new builds. So feel very free to drop me an email. Thank you, Sandra. That's kind of you to say. So Michelle is saying, if I have a new, put my glasses on instead of, if I have a new tower built to the northeast of us, which shadows over us, and a river to our northwest, how can I balance this out? Oh, it's really hard to answer questions like that without seeing it. Or do you even need to? I mean, it's a good question, because sometimes, as Michelle is saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Sometimes it's not a problem. There could be other factors, but it's really hard to say just based on that description, because of everything else that's going on. And I don't know, whatever the water dragon method is telling us, you know, it could be really good that you've got a tower there, because it could be blocking some of the negative, some of the, I don't know, the bang, the sickness energy or the death energy or whatever. So the tower may well be protecting, and then it depends on how much it's overshadowing you. You know, like if it's a small house and then there's great huge tower, then potentially it's a problem. But if it's quite a sizable apartment building with a tower next to it and you're in one of the apartments, maybe it's not such a problem. River to the northwest. Yeah, I mean, without seeing it, it's really hard to know how to do that. But, you know, feel free to contact me and we can have a little chat, you know, 20-minute call or something like that. Sometimes I look at people's floor plans just to get an idea of what they're looking at. So got anything else in there? Just scroll backwards. Sorry, I've missed a couple of. Verena, good evening from Passau. Good evening. Hope you're still here. I'm wearing, Mags is saying she's wearing a rose quartz pendant at the moment. Needed to bring my energy more to the center. It worked within the hour. Fantastic. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing better, is there, than to have the proof of the pudding, as they say, you know. Fantastic. Great. So, okay. So I've got, that was the chat. Right. Okay. So the Q&A. Hi, here in Switzerland. So this is Yasmin. Here in Switzerland, most houses and flats have underfloor heating. This means it's very hard to get a correct compass reading, because the metal will interfere. Yeah. If it's a house, you could go outside and take the reading, but if it's a flat, it's rather hard. Well, in fact, even with a flat, you can still go outside. It's just that you might not get the best reading, but you can still get some sort of reading because you go outside and align yourself to the make sure you're sort of perpendicular to the rest of the property. And you'll be looking at wherever your flat is, for example. There are other ways, I've developed all these tricks over the years, going around the side of a property, going to a room and taking the side reading, etc., etc. Sometimes I take about, 15 different readings, and then settle on one of them. And there are ways to protect yourselves from the electromagnetics as well, which is helpful. And I've even got a laser compass that I can use sometimes, with its own little tripod. Yeah, if I would say to you, Yasmin, just go outside, or the other way is go to the door, and if it's a wooden door, you should be able to get a fairly good reading from the wooden door, and then if you wear some rubber shoes, you should be sort of insulating yourself a little bit. Irisha, thank you. Oh, that's the snake question. We already answered that. Alexa, is a dense style of decorating bad? Everything is in place and blends in terms of color, but I have a dense house with tapestries, walls, all neutral colors. I'm not entirely sure what you mean by dense. I think do you mean quite intricate? You're saying tapestries. Tapestries tend to be quite intricate. I mean, it's just a tourist thing from, I don't know, Jaisalmer or Jaipur, but it's quite intricate. So tapestries, walls, dense. Look, it really depends. Depends on how large the house is. It depends on the colours of the walls. If you're saying there's neutral colours, a little bit of decoration is beautiful. I think the thing with what you're describing as dense is, I think you mean like quite a lot of stuff. So yeah, it's not ideal. And sometimes a sort of, although I love the sort of bohemian look as well, with those types of houses that have a lot of like antiques and things, it can get a little bit cluttered up. So it's not ideal. Perhaps you can bear to part with some of the items, or if they're on the floor, which can be like lots of heavy rugs and then chests and things like that are on the floor, they're dragging the energy down. But it depends. If you've got like an office that you work from that's something completely different, you may find that your house is like a little refuge for you and is the perfect way to chill you out and slow you down. So it's so, the yin and the yang, the active, the quiet, everything is so relative. It's just not one sort of one answer. It's always like a bespoke situation. Veronica McKenzie, hi Sarah, amazing, thank you. I read that I shouldn't do any work in the Southeast this year. Yeah, you want yes. Yeah, the Southeast, yeah, the Southeast has a sickness star, so it's not ideal to do an extension at the moment in that area. If you absolutely have to, for whatever reason, then the best thing to do is to get somebody like me to select a really good date for you to start the work. And also we can figure out, if you sent me your floor plan, we could figure out if you could start in a certain position, and I'd advise you on how to do a sort of ceremony to try and mitigate or at least reduce any, negative influence. But really, strictly speaking, you ought not to. And just try to put it off till next year. I hope that's answered everybody's questions. It's 8 o'clock now. Just checking the chat again. Yeah, do you know what? I've had this laser compass so long, I can't remember. No, it's just thinking about it. It's just an ordinary Feng Shui compass, but it's just got a base that has some sort of laser and a tripod. So, and I couldn't tell you, I bought it from a colleague, so I'm afraid I couldn't tell you where. Okay, so if you've already got a low pan, yeah, just, yeah, try and fashion your own. Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Unless anybody's got anything else they want to share, I believe I've covered everything. And thank you so much for joining me this evening. And I look forward to sending some of you my my download. It's a Feng Shui book for health. So I wish you a wonderful evening ahead, and thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.